All right, so let's move on to the other video that we covered. This is the JVC NX7, which is their $9,000 4K native 4K projector. And I know that you saw this, right? When you were here last time. Yeah. So how do you think it compares? Well, I take a little quick trip. How do you think it compares to the Sony projector that I had, the 695, which is $1,000 more at $10,000? This is $9,000.
I know the specs prove me right. I always thought that the Sony was a little dim. I always would look at it and say, Shane, like I remember one time we were watching Split, and I would always look at it and be like, have I been staring at like bright TVs or into the sun too much, or maybe even this LED studio light? Because the way I was able or unable to view the dark scenes in movies, it just made me question my eyesight. And that was due to just the overall screen brightness of the Sony 695. Very dim, very good though. I always like the Sony texture, the colors, just the overall representation of whatever it was that we were watching on the 695. I have a 40ES old school, right? And I like the Sony color, texture, so on and so forth. 695 was that, stepped up 4 times, of course, because we got 4K. Shane, just going over, 695.
Yeah.
Very dim though. I remember how many times did I tell you, like, yo, I feel like it's too dim. Like, I feel like remember that time we were watching Split?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yo, what's up with this? Okay. All right, fast forward to the JVC NX7. I saw the NX9 over at Robert's place. I was like, wow, this is really good. Like, no problem, whatever. You get the NX7 in your house, you put the anamorphic lens on it. I'm like, yo, this is perfect. Like, in terms of the brightness, I had no issues with brightness. I had no issues with motion, no issues with clarity, obviously. The only thing that I feel is missing from the JVC, and this is a personal thing, is that filmic texture. Mm-hmm. Maybe I got to watch more stuff on it. But the Sony, it always struck me as like, wow, like this is like what Sony intended you to see. Like what this is what these film directors intended you to see when it comes to home cinema. That certain pulp to the image that the Sony offered, that the JVC, it doesn't have as much of. But the JVC has the brightness, the clarity, the color, and most importantly, the black levels. Although it is, so like the Sony would like get too black to try to have good blacks.
Yeah.
The JVC doesn't have to but the JVC doesn't have to sacrifice to achieve great blacks. The JVC can get bright and it can get black, but it doesn't have to go overall with the image and go too dark like the Sony. So it's like trade-offs you got to make. If I had to get one, I would definitely go with the JVC. And it's hard for me to say that because I really like the texture of the Sony. But then again, the fact that the JVC has those good blacks without sacrificing the overall image brightness, as long as you do the manual aperture, because I would hate to do automatic aperture and constantly see scenes going dim and bright, right? Because that's just annoying because, I mean, we see that in the camera space when we record our videos if we put the settings wrong. But my impressions are that I would buy the JVC. I mean, and I'm saving money.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that extra $1,000, right, from the Sony is because of, well, actually it's a Sony, you know how they are.
Yeah.
But
it was good to overprice their stuff.
But that texture.
Yeah.
That texture. And I don't know if that's a personal thing. Maybe somebody could chime in the comments. It's something that I noticed about the Sony, and I feel like I would miss it, but the overall, you know how I am. I like to set settings and forget about it. That's how I am about my channel. Create settings on my systems, especially my projector, and forget about it. I don't want to have to adjust anything when I'm watching a movie or when I'm changing a movie. When I go from Batman vs. Superman to Gemini Man, I don't want to have to change settings. I feel like the JVC would give me that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like the Sony had a almost like a smoother image, I would say. I don't want to say it's a sharper image. Something about it is really extra clean. I think the added contrast of the JVC kind of makes it, I hate to say it, noisier. Like there's a cleanliness to the Sony image where it's just really very clean. But then within that cleanliness, I think the blacks suffer. Like the blacks were not quite as obviously not as quite as contrasty as the JVC. And when you're looking at shadow detail, the Sony would sometimes come across a little bit grayer looking, a little bit muddier looking. Almost like you're looking at a an OLED. I think I said it in the video. Almost like you're looking at an OLED, and then the Sony was kind of like an LED set. You know what I'm saying? You know how an LED has a specific look to it, and then the
Yeah.
OLED has a specific look to it.
Yeah, like you can tell there's a light source behind it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that's the difference. I feel there's a certain sharpness to an LED set that you don't get with an OLED set. But then the OLED has like everything else. It has like the contrast, has some pop to it. Where an LED, just something about it just looks a little bit cleaner.
But you know what's funny is that that clean look, for whatever reason, is giving or has given the Sony every time I've seen it at your place. This it has always given the Sony the edge and that texture look, that more filmic look, whereas the JVC is a little bit more. In comparison, the JVC NX7 is filmic by all in all respects. But in comparison, we're talking for me that the JVC has more of a video look than the Sony, as opposed to the Sony having more of a filmic look.
No, yeah,
Like if
yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think yeah, this is something about it. I mean, I don't think most people probably would ever see like both of them together, or
that's the thing. Yeah,
yeah,
when you don't have them side by side, you're never going to say, "Oh, I miss the Sony. I have to spend $1,000 extra." It's when you watch it for a long periods of time, one model that is, and then you switch to another one and you remember what you're missing because it's different.
mm-hmm.
It's not bad, it's just different. And like I said before, you got trade-offs. And the benefits you're getting, though, like the biggest thing I would always complain about for the Sony, as much as I like the image and the texture of it, I keep saying that word, but as much as I liked it, like I said, the only thing I ever kept complaining about was how it just seemed too dark and how I would question my eyesight a lot. And with the JVC, you don't have that issue.
Yeah. The Sony's. I mean, I do think I think the JVC is like 100 lumens brighter. I don't know if that
Yep.
plays that much of a difference. Apparently, it does.
Yep.
The Sony was definitely dimmer though. I hate to be knocking the Sony because I've lived with it for the past couple of years, like 2 years.
Oh, yeah. Right.
But for $1,000 cheaper, the JVC is the winner. I mean, it's $9,000. You're saving $1,000 plus you get an extra lens with it,
Yeah.
and the dynamic tone mapping on it is just like it's a game changer.
Yeah.
I don't know why Sony doesn't do a firmware update to implement the same thing. But yeah, it's just so much better. It was a little. I tried to do a little demo in the video, but the camera just can't pick up, the quick changes for HDR. But dude, so much better. I can only imagine
Yeah.
what the NX9 would be, which is like $18,000.
I know.
I hear it's not like a drastic difference, but I still hear that it's a difference. It's supposed to be like sharper too, from what I'm hearing.
Well, I remember when we saw
Yeah,
it,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, we did see
it was great,
Yeah,
but it wasn't like 8K sharpness off the roof,
yeah, no,
off
yeah,
the rails great.
yeah. I didn't
It
feel
was
that.
just like it was great. Um, and I mean, we saw it in a blacked out room, albeit not a completely blacked out room, but blacked out room. Very dark. Um, but yeah, I don't remember it being that much better than what you got now.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think
I
so
mean,
either.
we saw it on a larger screen, but we didn't see it on a scope screen.
I mean, I could have gotten the NX9, but I opted to go with this one. Obviously. Listen, I don't got that much spare change, but
Yeah.
This is still the first generation of these 4K JVCs.
Yeah, imagine what the second gen is going to be like.
So I figure maybe the second or third gen, maybe then I would go for their flagship. But at this point in
Yeah.
time, I feel like this is the middle ground. It's the safe bet, and everything that I've heard, hasn't been a major difference.
Yeah.
And back to the, I know we got a couple comments here, like how's motion from the JVC to the Sony. I do think if you're going to use like motion flow and all that, if you like the soap opera effect, the Sony does do a better job for that. I personally don't turn that stuff on. But as for the JVC, I like how the JVC does its motion. I forgot what it's called, clear motion for 3D movies. I like turning on clear motion for 3D. Like it's like in between soap opera and not soap opera.
Well, I mean, you even said in the review that the 3D on the JVC is a little brighter, so I guess that 100 extra lumens does play a role, especially in 3D. So.
And what did I watch? I watched Endgame again the other night.
Yep.
And Infinity War.
Yeah.
That shit rocks, dude. In 3D.
Yeah.
Way brighter.
Well, I mean,
way brighter. Yeah.
Maybe in the new one or in the second gen, they'll include that transmitter within the unit.
Yeah, it sucks. I had to pay an extra. It was an extra $100 for the transmitter.
Yeah.
Luckily, it still used the same 3D glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. NX9.
Big units though.
Yeah, they're big fat units. I don't mind it because I feel if you're gonna spend $9,000, I feel like you want to feel like
you
you're
want
getting
something
your
substantial.
money.
Yeah.
I feel like spending $17,000 on the processor is like, does it feel like a $17,000 processor? Not really. It doesn't. Does it sound like one? It sounds like one. It just doesn't feel like one.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about JVC projectors? What do you guys think about Sony projectors? I think the consensus has been JVC, at least for this latest generation. I'm still a fan of the Sony projectors, but what do you guys think? Sony or JVC? Leave some comments. Let us know.